Welcome, everybody. It appears that Dewanna Bonner may be leaving the Fever. We had some signs recently, her banner missing from the rafters of Gamebridge, as well as the fact that she has removed all her Fever posts from her Instagram except for a picture and post of her when she broke into third all time scoring. We don't know the reasons for this. We don't know the reason again for that is preventing her from being with the team, with playing. We don't know if this means that for personal reasons she's not going to be able to continue with this season, and or this means a trade is happening. We basically are still kind of in the dark, but signs are pointing towards that she is leaving the Fever. And who knows? Maybe not. Maybe potentially this is all misinterpreted signs, but for now, it's kind of what it's starting to look like. So, with that said, I think the idea of, regardless of the reason, of Dewanna Bonner moving on, opening up cap space, being able to trade is a decent spark that is exciting for the Fever in kind of the current doldrums that they find themselves in. Missing Dewanna Bonner, as much as I like her as a player, as much as I believe that she could eventually fit into our system and be a good contributor, she has struggled. It has been a challenge to work her in. And if we can have a player on the roster, it's worth, two MIA, or that's what the saying goes, I think. I don't know. But I think that we need to also acknowledge the CBA, which means that even if we are doing some sort of trade with Dewanna Bonner, it's probably not going to be anything crazy. Again, a lot of our roster moves for this season aren't long-term roster moves. They're roster moves for this year, preparing for the CBA. That also means that a lot of teams aren't going to make moves that go beyond this year that are big, huge moves because the CBA is going to change the landscape a lot next year with how we recruit. And so I think it's worth, especially with some comments I made during the Aces recap video, that we have a serious and honest talk about the roster and how I view things. So I get the emotions of being a fan. If you watch me during my watch parties or anything like that, I get super animated. I'm yelling at the team, I'm yelling at the coach, I'm yelling at the screen. However, when it comes to the way that I talk about the team and the way that I make content, what excites me, and kind of my perception of the team and how I process things and being more analytical, it's less emotion and it's more into that analytical side and seeing trends, seeing like taking the perspective of if I was a player on this team, if I was a coach on this team, if I was a GM of this team, how am I actually evaluating what's happening long term and not just in the moment, not game to game, not week to week, but more of like, hey, what's the trajectory? Where are we trending? And I still, from my viewpoint, still see us on the cusp of being a really good team. And there are lots of problems. There are lots of problems, but I think that when you look at the results and the problems, there are still lots of really good signs along with the bad signs and a lot of environmental factors that have compounded some of the bad feelings as well as the way that we're losing that also make things feel worse than they really are. And I get that people want to just be like, well, they are really bad and they could be bad right now. But again, I'm looking future. I'm looking farther steps beyond than how that game felt. You know, it's not about the feeling of it. It's about what are the results? What are we getting on the floor? What are the actual stats? So the offseason acquisitions have not been great. That's not like a bold statement for me to make. I don't believe that they have been good. On paper, a lot of people thought that the Fever won the offseason. So for people now to be like, oh, they're terrible because it didn't work out, I think it's a little disingenuous, right? Because a lot of people saw the acquisitions and were like, yes, this makes sense. And because they haven't panned out for whatever various reasons, injuries, personal issues, whatever is going on, not actually living up to it, I don't think that that necessarily means that like if you made a correct decision at the time and it didn't work out, that doesn't mean you made a bad decision. Now, results do matter, and I will say that there's a lot of things that do frustrate me with the roster. So, again, Dewanna Bonner hasn't really fit into the system. She struggled. There's lots of side convos with teammates, with Stephanie White, that just haven't worked out. She has had moments where she's been on a roll, but when she is on the floor with Clark and the rest of the team, she is kind of the fifth option, and that is not where you want her. She's a good asset from a length and defensive standpoint. She can rattle out some threes. She is a scorer, so she can get into that mode, but she also has just been stifled and frustrated and not worked out in some cases. And yes, she is old, longer in the tooth, and an older player, which means that she can't run and keep up the same tempo as we would hope for. Now, Howard has been putting in a lot of effort. Howard has been hustling. However, Howard's handles have been not great. Tosh, her mistakes with turnovers, her lack of defensive ability, which I think is the biggest indictment, because when she was brought in, you're thinking all defensive, like she's going to help us rim protect, she's going to run and help us rim protect, and she just hasn't really delivered there. So that has been another piece that hasn't fully worked out, although she's shown flashes of like good plays, rebounding, other stuff. Now, Olsen, I think that one is still a question mark because she has had moments, but she is not performing to the level of the player that we would need to be a reliable backup to Caitlin Clark or a co-pilot of the offense. Ari McDonald did a great job of that. Sydney Colson has had maybe 2, 3 like solid games, and the rest have been like riddled with some errors. And that is not what you want from the role that she was brought in to do. Cunningham is lovable, but her ankle injury has definitely stifled her ability to ramp up into the team. Kelsey Mitchell is fine. A lot of stuff has been made about her broken finger. I think she's fine. She's still scoring. She's averaging 17, 18 points. I expect that to go up as she gets more confidence and she warms up over the course of the season. This is the natural Kelsey Mitchell like cycle of things. Um, Obviously things that she can improve, some bad habits she's getting stuck into, but overall, I'm not disappointed with her. Hall took a huge leap and was very exciting early in the season. I think right now what we're seeing is the wear and tear of getting knocked to the floor multiple times every game and hustling and short. West Coast travel is kind of taken out of her. So those like mid range and other shots that we were seeing from her aren't quite falling. And even though she is getting like those 2 Lexi Hall threes a game, I think that we can find her more and utilize her better as well. Bree Turner, not a great pickup, even on a budget. I think that she was used today for her length. I disagree with White on that. If Dantos really was available, I don't think that Dantos was really available. I think there's like a background handshake going on because she's going off to America's Cup and they don't want to injure her before they send her off or something like that. I, I have a feeling something weird like that's happening because I don't see why Bree Turner, who's a full inch shorter and didn't really guard Asia Wilson much better tonight, was a better option considering that her offense wasn't as good. Her cuts were good, but she wasn't finishing. Don't like that. Timpson, I think that not a bad draft pick. I get the upside. She just needs more actual minutes on the court that aren't junk time because currently what is happening or what it appears to me is when I see her hop on the court, it feels more like she's in practice time. She looks very timid. She's kind of like running through and doing like checking the box, but she's not like going and trying to make the roster, right? She's not trying to go make the starting lineup, like she's just kind of like, doing what she's been doing in practice, and it feels more like a practice game than she's going out there and trying to score and making her presence known, which is what you want to get her into, but also that comes with getting real rep minutes and getting confidence, right? You can see other teams that have had successful runs with their rookies is they're throwing them in the fire and they're testing them, right? I think that the Fever, even with this new front office, even with this new coaching staff, are failing in the fact that we had this last year where I'm sure the evaluations are happening in practice. There's a lot in practice that we are not seeing. There's probably telling the coaches that like, hey, they're not ready, but I think that you really have to give them a shot. Otherwise, they're not going to build that confidence and you're not going to really be able to develop the player. So, hopping off that soapbox, I have to say that my biggest frustration with this team is it feels like on top of the environmentals, the injury, and the personal issues and all the stuff that we've always just really been shorthanded. Like tonight, it really felt like we only had like 7 available players, even though on paper we have more. And that just leads to less fresh legs and fatigue, and then the little mistakes that kill the team down the stretch. The teams are coming in. The team is coming in very prepared. They are very prepared. You see the game plan at the beginning of the game. We are executing the game plan. Things are flowing. Everything's looking good. And then sure enough, down the line we get tired. We come out flat. Little mistakes happen. Turns into big runs for the other team. We lose momentum, and then we're stuck. You play so much of the game well, and then you lose, and that's the thing that messes with you as a team. I think that again, there are flashes of like, we can beat the Liberty, we can make full runs, we can stave off teams, we can not falter in those moments. And then, there's times where we aren't living up to it. We're losing by a possession, we're losing by a couple possessions, or we're right at the cusp and then something doesn't go our way. And I think that is my perspective of where the team's at. I don't think it's doom and gloom yet. I get the feeling, I get that it feels bad, I get that it's not exciting, I get that like there's a lot of things that you wish you could just break and then it would fix the issue, but I guarantee you they won't. Right? I think that what I would like to see is, especially if Dewanna Bonner is going to leave the team, if we are going to open up cap room, if that's what this does, I would love to see us pick up. I mean, Erin McDonald, top of the list. You can actually be a point guard for us. She's a spark for us, and I miss her defense. I miss her tenacity. The extra possession she gets for us just by drawing offensive fouls is huge. I think that Emma here, when she is free from Golden State Valkyries, once they have their players back, I'd love to take a look at her. Her rim defense is the main asset I'm looking at, and she hustles and can fly up the court. She was running up the court and stealing from Clark on that cross pass. Like she runs, and then I think like there's other players like Mariam Badian, who she she is another big that has size, has defense, can run. I think that she would be a good person to look at. The Lynx dropped her earlier in the year. All this to say, like, I hope that whatever's going on in Bonner's life, it works out for her. But if this opens up and creates a spark for the Fever and some excitement and it allows us to move and fix our roster, get some more healthy legs, I think that is ultimately what is best for everyone, right? So again, I appreciate everyone's like criticism. Like there's a lot of times where like sometimes like I'll see comments and I'll see the support, I'll see the criticism. I take it all in. I don't get too high, I don't get too low. I appreciate the support, but also the criticism lets me internally critique and reflect and be like, hey, am I right on this? Am I off on this? And so regardless of how I respond or what you said in my way, if I do respond at all, just know that like I'm reading a lot of the stuff, whether it's good for my sanity or not. And I'm using that to kind of gauge and reflect and critique myself, which I think is helpful because again, I want to create the best content I can and from the best perspective I can. And part of that is being challenged, right? So regardless of where you are on that fence, just thank you for engaging with my content. Thank you for being a part of this community. Whether you're a subscriber, whether you just happen to find me for this video and you're like, what is this guy talking about? Go check out some of the other videos. Maybe it'll be helpful. But let me know what you think down below with the potential of Bonner leaving the Fever. Who would you like to see us sign and pick up? And as always, remember, you're going to be amazing today because you are amazing. And I'll catch you next episode.